Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me returning guest Sapphire Nova. So, welcome back.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me back. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been 5 years
Isn't that
since you
crazy?
were last on my other show, Pop Anime Comics Lounge, which is on hiatus right now, and I'm 40 deep in that. So, some people might remember that episode. If not, I'll probably want to bring up the link in the description in a little bit. But I do want to catch everybody up really quickly on who you are and how did you all get into cosplay.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm Sapphire Nova Cosplay. I've been cosplaying professionally for the last 7 years. I started cosplay when I was like 14, 15 years old, something like that. A little teenager, eons ago. But no, I mean, I got into cosplay just because like I loved movies and I love pop culture and I love comics and I just saw so many characters that I just so desperately wanted to be. And so I like found any excuse in the book to dress in costume and then found cons and found that there was this like whole world, this whole culture around it. And I loved it so much that I ended up basing my entire life on it.
And so obviously we're going to get into the obvious cosplay first and foremost in Black Widow in a second here, and hopefully I got that one right.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk a little bit about Inside Baseball because I find it so interesting where people even draw inspiration from, and where do you draw inspiration from? And obviously you've done a bunch of cosplays both on the Marvel side, some anime stuff, as well as DC Comics side, and a few other places as well. So where do you even draw inspiration from and
Okay.
creative process from as well?
Um, I draw inspiration from literally everything. Like, I can't help, like, I watch movies and literally I'll be like watching a movie, like breaking down the costume. Like, even if I have no intention of making this costume, and I'm like sitting there, like, okay, well, so for the top, I would probably sew that. Maybe I would use some EVA foam for those gauntlets. Like, okay, well, what would I do for that? Like, literally, I'm breaking down, like, piece by piece, like, how would I sew it? How would I make that? Like, what pieces would I use? What kind of colors? Like, do I have the spray paint for that? Like, and like, so literally everything, like everything I read, everything I watch, like anything I like, things I see on the internet, like I'm just scrolling through Instagram and I'm like, that's a cool costume. Like literally everything that's put in front of my eyes is inspiration. And so sometimes it's, sometimes it's just, like I said, like I'm watching a movie and I'm like, oh dude, that'd be cool to make. And then I'm like, nah, I probably won't ever make that. And so sometimes they're just kind of passing thoughts. And then other times they like really take hold where I'm like, this is the costume. And so sometimes there's like ones that I'm like, yeah, at some point in my life, I'll probably make this costume. And then others, it's like, if I don't have this costume done by next week, I'm gonna die. And so I go on this like frenzy to like make this costume. So, there's all kinds of levels, but yeah, literally anything I can find, like all I do like is constantly try to find new inspirations and, even if it's new looks or, sometimes I'll see a costume and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But you know what? I think it would look really cool if I did XYZ and like, try and make a twist to it or something. So there's like I can't turn off the inspiration is a better way to put it.
And obviously, you just mentioned a lot of stuff. And one of the things that sort of comes out of all of this is that you see something, you get inspired with a movie, another person did a cosplay, or even something that is not relevant because our minds work in very interesting ways. Different things trigger different things.
Sure.
And so once you have an idea and you sort of build out how to do it, how
Mm-hmm.
do you deal with material costs and substituting materials and finding materials? Because you mentioned EVA foam, and I don't know if you do much Warbler and that type of stuff, but obviously, finding materials can be difficult. And then more importantly, though, and I think one of the biggest things, cosplay can get very expensive very quickly.
It can. And yeah, I am like the queen of like thrifting, but not in the way you'd think. So like I don't go to thrift stores and look for like, here's a shirt that I can make. I look for like, this dress looks like it has about enough material to make a shirt. So something that like it has absolutely like it will not end up the same, like it won't be the same in the end as it started. But like but that dress had 2 yards of fabric for $5 where it would have been $12 if I went to the to a Joann's or something. So I definitely like will part out things like that sometimes to make costumes because truly I make a lot of costumes. I mean, this is my profession, this is what I do, but I do have to try and make it cost effective. And as far as like Warbler EVA foam, I mean, I buy all those direct from the source. So I buy in bulk, and I have a full room in my house that is strictly devoted to crafting. It's got my sewing machine set up. It's got room to use my Warbler, my EVA foam. It's got I've got a whole paint room down in the garage that's just for painting. I do all my like epsiloning there. So yeah, like I just kind of stockpile stuff. And so I'm a little mini hoarder when it comes to materials. Like I'm not usually a hoarder, but but only for cosplay materials because I'm like, well, this tiny little scrap of fabric, I can use that at some point, and I will.
And to even talk about this, because I've done a lot of cosplayers who are international in the last 6 months of this year, and even before of last year, 2020, and they've had the issue of getting materials into
Yeah.
their countries. And I know in the U.S. it's been interesting where some people have had a hard time getting materials and others have not. So how has that been in finding materials and also even just getting different components? Because obviously shipping has been a nightmare,
Yeah.
and globally, I mean, it's a disaster. And I know from the comic world, there are certain countries that a lot of my friends on Kickstarter can't ship to because their countries aren't open all throughout 2020, which is the first time that's ever happened in my life. So obviously, how has finding and even getting materials been like throughout COVID for you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. So, like I said, a little bit of a hoarder. I actually had like just restocked on EVA foam, just restocked on Warbler, like just like so. A lot of the things a lot of the things that I get from overseas, I luckily had just procured. So like I haven't had to deal with that. So thank goodness, bless my lucky stars. Um, and then things like foam clay, which has become, kind of new and up and coming. Like even Amazon sells it now. So yay, Prime shipping. But made it really easy. So I am blessed that I have not had to deal with that. And I feel so bad for all the people that have.
And what is that like? Because obviously we spoke 5 years ago, and I think it's safe to say 5 years ago, Amazon did not have a massive cosplay section online.
Yeah.
There were not cosplay sellers on Amazon. There was no FBA for Amazon, for lack of a better word here. And even I think Michaels has had more stuff with cosplay now in different areas. And I think they're still testing some of it around and a variety of other things. And obviously, other arts and craft stores have stuff like that as well. So, what is that like for you as a cosplayer? Because that's changed dramatically. And I'm not a cosplayer, but even I've seen it.
Sure. I mean, so like I said, a lot of stuff I get direct from the source just because it is cheaper. So, I don't buy a lot from like Michaels and those because they are marked up because they're selling in smaller amounts, just like any store will do. But for like new and upcoming cosplayers, like people that are just trying it out for the first time, it's incredible. Like people have so much more access to stuff that they didn't have 5 years ago. And so it's amazing the things that people do have this ease of access to now that also like just helps people be more creative. So, you get new ideas and new techniques and all sorts of things. And, I'm constantly learning as much as the next person. And so it's great because there's there's just this explosion of knowledge now with this, ability to acquire new things. And, it is also great too, because, overall I do, purchase online and purchase in bulk, but like sometimes you do run out, and sometimes there's that last minute thing of, oh man, I didn't think I needed this much and now I need this much. And so, it's a blessing, absolutely, to be able to get everything so quick and so easy now.
Yeah, and I also think that it's also that the cosplay realm, whether it's professional or it's just a hobby for somebody, is now becoming more of a mainstay.
Yeah.
And obviously that is super important where I think 5 years ago, and maybe I can't speak, and you're probably more of the expert on this because I'm not a cosplayer. Cosplay twice. Didn't build all my cosplay off of eBay. It was custom and I had to be measured, my
Yeah.
mom for it. But nonetheless, it is, I think, becoming more of a mainstay. It is becoming more of a cultural norm, and now it's not viewed as Halloween in the middle of July.
Yeah. It is. It's crazy. Like, even like, I'm trying to remember. There was something I watched recently that they made like a cosplay comment, and I was just like, hey, like, it was like some Netflix show or something. But it was just like, it is like, and it's not just in the nerd culture. Like, it's in culture. Like, you just hear about it, you see it, it's talked about. Like, it is crazy. Like, it is something so different. When I started, I mean, I don't want to date myself and say exactly how many years ago. It was a while ago. It was a lot longer than 5 years. I mean, it was so strange. Like, you went out in costume and it wasn't Halloween, people did look at you strange. I mean, people still look at you strange, but but like, it wasn't a known thing. It wasn't a talked about thing. It wasn't something that you could, wave your freak flag high. It was kind of weird and strange. Like, even me as like a girl in high school going into a comic book store, like, it was weird. Like, people stopped and like like, even in the comic book store, people were like, wait, there's a girl in here. Like, it was strange. And so life really has, like, I mean, it has become way more mainstream to be okay with nerd culture. Like, it's cool to wear around superhero shirts. It's cool to talk about anime. Like, these things are so, like, I mean, I was into anime when I was in, middle school, and it was one of those things like, oh God, here's the freak. Like, and I mean, I didn't care because I like what I like, and that's always been who I am. And so, but it was still like, I was a weirdo for liking this stuff. And it's cool that it's not that way anymore.
Yeah, I think that's my entire, fifth grade all the way through high school. And I was just completely ignorant and didn't give a flying fuck about what anybody thought. And I wore what I wanted to wear, and I wanted to be different, and I was happy to be different. So there you go. And now I mean, I make money with this stuff, and I'm a big comic book investor and all sorts of stuff. And so obviously, though, I want to get into some of these cosplays. A
Sure.
friend of mine's watching. He likes your Black Widow cosplay, and I think that's the best place to start here because that's sort of the elephant in the room, or one of the elephants in the room. So obviously, what drew you to Black Widow?
Black Widow was actually one of my like early costumes. I like I mean, I fell in love with her the second you saw. I mean, like, I loved, like, Black Widow was always a cool character to me. Like, reading comics and growing up with her, like, but seeing her the first time you saw her in Iron Man 2, and she like makes this appearance, and she's just this like badass, like, kicks butt, like, she was just so awesome. And I love cosplaying strong women. Like, that to me, like, it's one of those things. Like, I use cosplay as a way, like, I'm a pretty, secure person in and of myself. Like I said, I didn't care that I was the freak. Like, I've always been who I am. But like, cosplaying strong women, it helps me feel strong and feel powerful. Like, I can take on the world too. And so I loved when I like that like scene where she like walks through the hall and like kicks all the butt and like, I mean, she was just so badass that I was like, I need to cosplay this person. And so like, it was just, she just spoke to me so much. So yeah.
And then obviously you sort of got in early on Black Widow,
Mhm.
because then all of the Avengers and then
Yep.
Captain America came out, and then basically the Infinity stuff came out, and then I think the Black Widow movie came out. I'm so lost now in the Marvel universe; it's not even funny anymore.
Right? No, Black Widow is scheduled to come out in July.
See, this is how lost I
am. Which is also part of the reason why I decided to wear this, you know, getting, you know, prepped. But yeah, no, actually, like, I went so far back on her. Like I said, I made her costume immediately after Iron Man 2 came out. To the point of I spent eons watching that little clip trying to figure out, okay, my first question was the suit. Is it blue or is it black? Because
Or
it's
gray.
kind of like
Or gray.
tint in the first one, and it's gotten progressively darker black as it's gone. But her first suit, watch the movie, look really closely and tell me, is it blue or is it black? So I actually went blue with my first iteration, like a really, really deep blue. But yeah, that was my first. I've redone this costume several times and like updated and improved, and I don't even like to go back and look at those old pictures because they're terrible. But yeah, no, I like.
And the reason why I bring this up is that obviously I am so lost in the Disney universe. Like I'm half in, I'm half out. I just went on an HBO Max run, so yeah. But I figure we're starting with Marvel first. So
Okay.
obviously the reason why I bring it up though is that because there's a lot of hype with Black Widow, and obviously I think we can ruin where you know the Infinity sequels basically go, and that she makes the sacrifice and the world gets restored, and there's a lot of moments with her. There's a lot of, you know, sad moments with her and Hulk as well, and a lot of cool stuff's going on with it. And obviously with the movie coming out in July, you know, obviously there's going to be a big spike for her. And what is that like for you to sort of be an early adapter in cosplay with her?
It's really cool because like, I mean, that's one of the fun things is as each movie has come out, they have changed her look slightly. So whether it's a new suit, a new hairstyle, a new like they've adapted, and it hasn't like drastically changed, but just little pieces of her has changed. And so it's kind of fun that, you know, seeing, you know, from where I started at the beginning to see how like new people come and, you know, take this, you know, new adaptation and take this new version and added it and take this new version. And so you get all these slight variations with all these cosplayers. It's really neat to see. And it's neat to see, especially as somebody that, you know, again, knew her from the comics and, you know, knew her beforehand. It's neat to see how people have gravitated towards her as a character and, you know, have gotten to know and love her. And again, we'll see how she, you know, how she pulls off her own movie. And it's, you know, it's really exciting to see where they're taking her story.
And it's also super interesting because now you have a lot of top artists doing Black Widow covers and variants. You know, J. Scott Campbell released an awesome cover, I think 6 months ago, I want to say. Obviously, they were trying to do it, I think, last year for May, and then obviously the cover in the movie just didn't match up because of COVID. But even when you get those ideas, and that inspires new cosplays, and I love the entire thing because I think both drive each other in many ways.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very interesting because she's getting a lot of fanfare and a lot of hype right now. Yeah. And I think it's going to be super interesting because obviously when cons reopen up, I'm sure that you're going to have fun with her.
Oh, for sure. I'll actually give a little teaser here. I actually just recently did a photo shoot as Black Widow, but not in this costume of hers. So, and actually something that I've never really seen done before. So I don't want to say my own unique twist on it because it's part of her backstory, but it's a really cool, unique take on her. So I can't wait to share it, and you know, everybody's gonna have to keep following to see
Because
what it's all about.
you did sort of a semi-beach shot of her as well.
I have, yep,
And
yeah.
so that's not secretive.
That's not
So
the no, that's an old one actually. That was like 4 years ago, 5 years. No, sometimes I like doing different little takes on characters. I always like doing the character not always properly, but at least, really well done, high quality, whether it's following it to a T or giving it a cool twist. And then sometimes I like, throwing in random like her beach version. Like that was just, a leotard that I had that I took some of her, accessories, and it was just a fun day at the beach, so it was just sometimes I like to do little twists on my characters.
and then obviously I want to back out of Black Widow before we play the guessing game and I ruin everything for everyone and get you and me in trouble. Um, and so I do want to talk about Spider-Man and all that fun stuff. And obviously you got a Gwen Stacy, and you've done a bunch of Gwen Stacy.
I have.
I love Gwen Stacy. I think Gwen Stacy is the greatest thing in the last 20 years that Marvel has done, both as far as writing, introducing it, bringing her back. I love when she got killed. I'm one of those people. My favorite cover is a Martin Macros cover of Peter holding Gwen on the red cover for Spider-Man 692. It's amazing. I spent a lot of money for it to get it back. Graded in a 9.8. It's a beautiful cover. And so obviously what drew you to Gwen Stacy, and there's Spider-Gwen, the suit, the hood. There's a nicer version where I guess, she's not Spider-Gwen, for lack of a better word. And then there's another version where it's like a lizard type thing.
Honestly, so Spidey was like my first love. I loved Spider-Man, especially growing up, and like he will probably always be one of my favorite heroes. Like I'm like 90% of the world, of course. But I just I loved his snark, and I loved the humor, and I loved the heart. And so I always loved his story. Since I, started with the original 1963 comics all the way up. And so, I mean, I can't say that I've read every comic, but I've read quite a few of them. And so I always loved him. And so I've pretty much done most of Spidey girls. I've done Mary Jane, I've done Felicia Hardy, I've done, Gwen Stacy. I just, those are just ones I've always been drawn to. But Gwen is just kind of one of those fun, I like that she's kind of pure and kind of, she's that beautiful love interest, but her story is so sad and so tragic. And so there's just something about her that's just so compelling and then with the reintroduction of her as Spider-Gwen and that whole universe, so now you've got this beautiful story. Now she's this powerful girl, but she's kind of spunky and quirky, and I like that too. So that was fun. And then honestly, so like I said, I get inspiration from everything. The whole lizard version actually stemmed from I was watching Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Amazing Spider-Man 1. And there's the whole, version where now she's working at Oscorp alongside Doc Connors. And obviously he becomes Lizard and, goes to infect the population, and Spider-Man stops it. Sorry, spoiler alert. But as I'm watching it, I'm sitting there going, it would have been so easy for her to get infected by this too. I wonder what that could look like. And so, literally something is so simple as just a fleeting thought like that. And that's what spawned it. And so, I sat there and I figured out, okay, well, I'd take her lab coat and obviously, ripped it. And I kind of stole a little bit, because now I started spinning it into, okay, now this would be a different, multiverse. Okay, so maybe she had lost her arm as opposed to Doc Connors. So whenever I paint my arm, it's always my right arm because it's always his, his dominant hand, which I'm right dominant. So, that's always my lizard hand. So it had grown back, I go through every little detail of this. This is how specific I will get with my costumes. And how much I'll go into the story, even though the average person will never know this, but I'll know, and that makes the difference to me.
And so, what is that like being very authentic? Because at a certain point, I mean, there are multiple levels on how people appreciate cosplays, how they view cosplays, how, some people view it on the surface, other people go deeper, other people go really deep. And at a con, there's a variety of different people who understand craftsmanship, all the way to saying, "Hey, that just looks dope." And so obviously, from somebody I think can appreciate what you do from a dope level, but then I'm sure there's other people who say, "Oh, I get what you did there with this at the same time."
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool because there's quite a few people that come up to me and are like, "Wow, your costume is amazing." I don't know what it is though. And I obviously, I appreciate those people that are just like, "Hey, I appreciate it for the craft of it. It looks cool, like great." And then there's other people that will, straight up be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did this version of this character on this page," like, and they get so excited to see to see their favorites brought to life too. So you really do see all kinds of levels, and it's really neat to be appreciated for whether it's just, "Hey, I like the whole," or whether, "Hey, this thing is the coolest thing I've ever seen because it's my favorite," and it's great, and that's part of what makes cosplay so rewarding.
Yeah, and then also to continue talking about the lizard, because you've done like a lizard storm. I think you've done a lizard Emma Frost version as well. And so, what is that like to expand the lizard version of all your cosplays as well? Because obviously now you kind of got a theme going, and I just love that. Like you're taking this idea of this infectious lizard type thing and going into other characters and going into the X-Men and all that stuff. Because I think it's great, and I think it's really clever, especially for people who know your cosplays, whether
Yeah.
that's through Instagram or at a convention, and they see it, they're like, "Oh, I remember you did X this time." And it's probably a lot easier on Instagram because you could just scroll back through the pictures. But even still, like when I saw it, I'm like, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah, it's fun to, like I said, it's fun to be able to rearrange and find different things, and I like to do that, like little things like that where you give Easter eggs to people that if they're paying attention, great. If they don't notice, that's fine too. But yeah, it's always fun to give a little something back to people.
And then while we're on the topic of the X-Men, because obviously the X-Men, I think they just sort of dropped on Disney Plus, and now Disney Plus is running them in there, commercials to get you to buy Disney. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors of when the X-Men are going to come into that entire thing, and well, you did a Rouge, obviously Beach Day Rouge as
Yeah.
well, Emma Frost, a lot of crystals with Emma Frost apparently. Obviously Storm mashup as well. And so, what is that like? Scarlet Witch, we could sort of throw in there because she's sort of a mutant. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly where Scarlet Witch falls in Marvel. Again, I'm a DC guy. So, I know Marvel briefly from Fear Itself and Civil War. That's it in Marvel, what I know. Which are the two best things to know in Marvel.
Yeah. So I made mine Marvel. I was Marvel before Marvel was cool. But yeah, so as much as I love Spidey, I also love the X-Men. So I have quite a few X-Men in my lineup. You are absolutely right. And there is definitely more to come because I am not through cosplaying X-Men by any means. In fact, I'm pretty sure until I have cosplayed them all, I will not be satisfied. And there are a lot. Um, but yeah, like I just like I see the thing that I loved, and this is why I'm sorry to say I like Marvel more than I like DC. And I did long before the MCU too. Is as a woman, I've always felt Marvel had many more strong, independent, well developed female characters than DC did. I feel like DC has come a long way on that now. Like they've picked up the pace with that. But, coming from, when I started reading comic books as a kid, like you know, especially the X-Men, there were so many strong women and they were so diverse, and each one had their own personality and their own power. And, you know, it wasn't, you know, you look at, you know, Storm and she's this, you know, beautiful, independent, I mean, just strong, and she's got the power of the weather on her hands, and I mean, incredible. And then you had Supergirl. Okay, Supergirl was basically Superman. Okay, okay, and then you've got, you know, Rogue, and you know, Rogue has the power to, you know, take other people's powers, and she can fly, and she's strong, and she's got, and then you have Batgirl or Batwoman, who's basically Batman, you know, and so like that's kind of how I at least viewed the comics growing up, and so much more of Marvel had that appeal, and especially the X-Men. There was just so many, you know, you look at Mystique, who, you know, such a badass, and Jubilee, and, you know, there's so many cool just girls, and they all had their uniqueness. They were all, you know, they all had their own things going on. And so they didn't feel like they were just a shadow of their male counterpart. And so that's what was so compelling to the X-Men, and that's why I found so many different costumes and so many different looks I like, and like I said, they're gonna keep coming.
And obviously, I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to be super interesting with the X-Men coming down in the MCU, and then whenever they
Oh,
come into the MCU. But you know, it's going to be interesting when the X-Men come in and all that. So I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it exactly,
yeah,
and I'm stoked for it though.
it's cool to it's cool to think of what they can do now, you know. So there's so many, you know, I mean, Marvel was in so much trouble in the 90s when they started selling out their properties, but now that they're all starting to come back together under Disney, and, you know, like, you know, love or hate Disney, that's, you know, you guys can all discuss that in the comments, but, you know, at least seeing them all back together again, I think there's a lot of cool things that can be done. And, you know, Disney's not always a perfect everything they do, but they do a lot of good stuff. So
It's
I'm
gonna
excited
be
where they
the
go.
way I view it is that it's gonna be really really good with the X-Men or really really bad. It's not gonna be in the middle.
Yeah.
And as we enter phase 4 and phase 5, that it's going to be the best thing on the planet, or it's going to be a disaster. It's not going to be in the middle, is how I view it. But that, and I trust Disney that they know what they're going to do.
Fingers crossed.
I trust Disney that I hope they know what they're doing, and and if they don't, well, they're going to have to answer to their shareholders.
Right.
So as long as they don't incorporate Star Wars into the MCU, it should be fine.
Okay. They'll have the same horde going after them that went after Star Wars. So.
I don't think Thanos belongs in Star Wars. Y'all could disagree, but I digress right there. And obviously, I do want to talk about one more, and I know I'm missing a few, and that's your Captain Moon. And I know we spoke about this one before as well in Marvel. But
Yeah.
obviously, this is the version of Sailor Moon meets the Punisher. No, meets Captain America. Wow, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. So obviously, I'm giving you another idea right there, because that's a
True.
contradiction right there. But obviously, your Captain America, Sailor Moon, both very similar. You know, I don't know if you know what rabbit is in Japanese.
I do not know, actually.
Usagi. Spell
Oh,
Usagi.
yes.
It's USAGI. United States of America General Infantry.
Oh, yeah.
So very, very, very fitting.
Had nothing
So
to play into it. No, it was just, again, it was kind of like the lizard Gwen concept. Like, it was just one of those random, every once in a while I come up with these, or like I look for things that that kind of go well together. Like, especially, you know, now in the era of, again, so many people are cosplaying, so many cosplays have been done before. And so I'm always looking for something that can be new and unique. And of course, not everything. I mean, obviously, here I am sitting as Black Widow. Like, not everything is going to be new and unique, but I like to have those things too. Like, the thing I look for in my cosplays is that I have a little bit of everything. So I have some Marvel, I have some DC, I have independent comics, I have some video games, I have some anime. You know, again, I've got a little bit of everything. I have some mashups. And so, you know, I was kind of looking for something that could be cool. And so I was trying to think of something that could be good with Sailor Moon. And I thought, you know, because there had been a few Sailor Moon, you know, mashups at that point, but I had never seen the Sailor Avengers done the way we did. And so
explain that this wasn't a one-off. This was a group.
So it was a group. We actually have, and so there's been some debate whether, you know, which character. Captain Moon, obviously, like Captain America and Sailor Moon lined up so well as like the leaders, as the blonde, as the kind of, you know, fight for justice, you know.
There are characters that are just perfect matches, and then
Yes.
there's other characters that are up in the air, and I don't know how far this group went and how far this group was. I don't remember. Obviously, I think we spoke about this a few years ago.
5. And so, like I said, that was the only one that was like truly a direct, like, these two went together. The rest of them were just were based more off their Avengers counterpart and fit into like the sailor dresses and that kind of stuff. So we more looked at like the color schemes and all of that to make the Avengers part of them recognizable and really pop. So we had, you know, an Iron Man, a Thor, a Hulk, and a Hawkeye were the ones that all kind of fit. So, you know, some like Iron Man fit pretty well with, I believe it's Sailor Mars. So they kind of had, you know, the similar hairstyles. You know, Thor fit pretty well with Sailor Venus. So like there was some correlation.
I mean, technically speaking, Iron Man should actually fit more with Sailor Mercury. If it were gonna,
I'll be the first to admit I'm not.
So Mercury, for those who don't know, is actually blue, and the reason why is Mercury is the most tech savvy out of the Sailor Scouts.
Yeah, and so there was somewhere like, well, that would have made a little more sense there, but like, you know, so
it gets confusing.
Yeah, and there was some like, okay, well, a little bit of that sailor would have gone here and a little bit here, and it just became too much. So again, in the end, we ended up focusing more on making them really pop as their Avenger. So
it's all right. Every Thursday at 7 o'clock in the morning on my Twitter, there's a Sailor Moon meme that goes up. And legitimately for like the next like 12 weeks, it's Sailor Moon meets the Avengers. Every Thursday at 7 in the morning.
That's correct.
So this is why we're talking about this, because I love the concept of it, and I just think it's funny, and I think it's brilliant because obviously Sailor Moon is a massive icon in anime, much like Dragon Ball Z is, much like Yu-Gi-Oh is, and then, well, everybody knows who the Avengers is, and everybody knows who the Justice League is. And so when you take the top, you know, 4 comic properties and then you mash up 2 of them, obviously it's going to get attention.
Yeah.
And so that sort of leads me into this, is that what is it like for you? Because obviously we're going to jump into DC in a second, but you do have a lot of cosplays that touch upon a lot of different, you know, genres and venues and positions, and it's something that, you know, and there's nothing wrong with somebody who does just one type of cosplay.
No, absolutely.
But what is that like for you to have massive diversification? Because obviously with my interviews, I have a lot of diversification, and I believe diversification is good in a lot of ways, but I also understand being an expert at one particular thing is also cool as well. And there's people who do one type of cosplay and all they do is like samurai mecha versions of cosplays, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to cosplay, like, do whatever makes you happy. Like, if one version, if, you know, all you want to do is, you know, Sailor Moon cosplay Sailor Moon. Like, cosplay every version there is of her, cosplay every character there is. Like, do whatever makes you happy. If you have one dress and that is what you like to wear that. Like I said, for me, I do like to diversify, just because it's a little something for everyone. You know, if you're not a Marvel fan, great, I have anime. If you're not an anime fan, great, I have video games. If you're not into video games, great, I have independent comics. Like, and so that's the thing is, I want somebody, I want everybody to be able to come to my page and look and go, hey, that's a character I love. That's so cool. That's a thing I can relate to and can, you know, get excited about. And I love seeing that, you know, be a real person. Like, and so that's where I come from is, you know, yeah, there's things that I love more than others, but, you know, I do love a little bit of everything. And so I want to show people, and I want people to be able to have something that they can grab onto and truly love.
And then I want to change gears, and I want to talk straight about DC. Since we're talking about things that and I'm a DC guy. Okay. I love DC. You know, the picture that I used on the event was you have Starfire, and I think that's the best one to start with. And that's how I first met you at Big Apple Con. And by the Garden, you know, the Knicks didn't win, guys. I'm very upset about it. It's not they played good though throughout the season. You know, that Trae Young, that guy can play. But obviously, let's talk about Starfire, because New 52. I love New 52 Starfire. I think it's a brilliant writing by the husband and wife team, Amanda Connor and Jimmy. I can't say his last name, but it's a tough last name, and I don't want to say it wrong because I'll say it wrong.
No.
And obviously, I love the fact that she had a mini series. I like that she came out of Red Hood and the Outlaws at the same time, and this is sort of before she came into the Titans. And so, obviously, what inspired the New 52 version, because it's very different than every other Starfire that was out there.
Yeah. Again, well, so my love of Starfire, I started with the Teen Titans cartoon, and I got into that long before I did the comics. And I loved her character. Like, she's, I think, much more close to me. So, like, I enjoy cosplaying characters that are, like, so far away from my personality, that are, you know, just stoic and strong and epic. But then sometimes I like cosplaying ones that are like me, that are just kind of fun and bubbly and goofy. And you know, I love Raven too. I think she's cool, and I've cosplayed her, not as much, but I'm starting to get there. I am not happy with her costume yet, but but Starfire just has that, like, soft spot in my heart where, like, again, I just like seeing that she can be that strong personality, that she can kick butt, but she's just this goofball at heart. And so, like, I love that about her. And so that was kind of what initially drew me to her character. And then I started, you know, as I started, you know, learning more about her and, you know, seeing her in more versions, I went looking for a version that I really liked of hers. So I didn't want to do her cartoon version because it was a little too, for me, a little too kiddish. Like, it's, you know, it's a cool costume for what it is in the show, but it's not my favorite. And then I didn't want to go, like, old school, like, big 80s hair. Like, you know, I was like, that wasn't quite the style I wanted. And so I ended up coming across her New 52 costume, and I was like, I felt like that was the nice balance between that, like, what I initially fell in love with about her and, like, just her as this character. Like, I liked that. And then again, it was one I hadn't seen a whole lot of people do at that point. Like, you know, not to say I wasn't the first by any means, but, like, it wasn't, you know, I hadn't seen everybody do that version. So it was kind of this cool, like, more, you know, not obscure, but, like, just not as mainstream. So that was kind of what drew me to that, and that costume in particular.
And also, her New 52 has more of a Southern Miami feel to it.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to put it, because I think it takes place in Miami or in Florida. Obviously, she's coming out of Red Hood and the Outlaws, and hanging out with all of them. And this is before she sort of comes to the Titans. And then, well, they rebooted everything. So it's a whole different, ball game. But obviously, it has more of a fun feel to it, and that's the difference with the '80s and even the cartoon. And then Teen Titans Go, Starfire. That's just a whole box of stuff to unbox. And brilliant move by Cartoon Network. But still,
Here's the thing I will say in defense of Go, because don't get me wrong, I hate it. I think it's terrible. But my niece and nephews, they love it. So it's that perfect something to get the new generation in, and and then once they understand, once they fall in love with the characters, then they can move on to the bigger and better stuff. And so I think that's great. Like, what a great way to introduce such amazing characters to a new audience.
I think Go does what it needs to do, but I'm an old school Teen Titans fan. I do have a DC Presents number 26, and I paid not that much money for it, and it's worth a lot more now. So I love my Teen Titans.
Yeah.
And I think the Teen Titans are the greatest thing, and they're the most underrated team in DC. And also, they are a massive feeder, and if you look at characters, there's a reason why. So obviously, even going further off this, because you did another version of Starfire, and it's Genie.
Yeah.
And I Dream of Genie. And I don't know how many people know I Dream of Genie, but that's an old school, show. That's like before your time, right? And that's way before my time.
Yep.
And I think I could say that because you're young enough that show was not around when you were 5.
No, for sure. Actually, it's interesting because that costume was born because I was kind of in the point where I was about to retire Starfire as a costume, and then I have since unretired her. But at that point, I had worn Starfire so many different conventions. I was kind of burnt out on the New 52 version, like, just because, I had probably worn it to north of 50, 60 conventions at that point. So I was just like, I'm done with this costume. I don't want to wear it anymore. I don't want to look at it. Even though I love it, like, I do, but it was just like too much. And so I was like looking for a new version of Starfire to do, because again, I didn't want to do like the cartoon. I didn't want to do the 80s. Like, so I was like, I want something new. And Barbara Eden, the original I Dream of Genie, was going to be at a convention we were going to. And I went, wait a second. How cool would that be? Again, like trying to find things that, like with it, because that's the hard thing with doing a mashup, is you have to find things that are so uniquely each character to bring to that mashup that makes both of them read. And so I was really excited that when I came up with this idea, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so brilliant. I cannot wait. I love it. And so I was so excited. And I went and I met Barbara Eden, and she was so cool, so sweet. But she looked at me and goes, but why are you orange? And I just laughed. I was like, well, because I'm actually this mashup. Like, that's why my costume's not the red and pink that yours was. Like, but it was just so cute. Like, she was just so baffled and just like truly did not understand. But why are you orange? And it was just so funny. But she was so sweet, and she loved it and thought it was really a cool concept. But it was just something so simple that sparked that idea. And I love being my Genie Starfire.
And so obviously you brought up two interesting points that I think we should touch on. It's retiring a cosplay. Mm-hmm. Because at a certain point, things can get very stale. They can get old. There is something called oversaturation with everything. And obviously that can be an issue. And then obviously unretiring it at the same time. or you're just putting it on the shelf for a year is a good way to put it also. Yeah. And then also even doing a mashup. And because when you do a mashup, you run the risk that somebody might get it, somebody might not get it. I happen to be cultured. Pinky up, okay, pinky up here.
Yes.
Obviously, I happen to know I Dream of Genie.
Mhm.
Now, whether that's due to my parents or just being exposed to a variety of things,
Yeah.
and when you're into anime, things pop up in your news feed all the time.
Mhm.
And so, but I don't know how many people know I Dream of Genie. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe a lot of people do. But
I think
what is
it's
that like for you, running that risk and then saying,
yeah.
okay, and maybe I even have to explain to somebody what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. And I mean, it happens with any costume. You could be Black Widow and people look at you and go, "What the heck are you?" So, it's never going to be a perfect. I mean, there's just too much information out there. Like, it's just not possible to get everybody. In fact, we were talking about the Sailor Avengers earlier. There was actually a moment when we were in New York City and we were walking around in the subways, and every single one of us, at one point or another, got called Wonder Woman, including the
I
Incredible.
swear to God, it was an accident. I
like
swear to God.
like Hulk is a green skirt, a purple bow, green hair, and got called Wonder Woman. So
Again, I apologize. It was my fault, clearly.
so it happens with anything. As far as I Dream of Genie goes, I do think it's one that, even if a lot of people haven't seen I Dream of Genie, a lot of people know what it is. So, I mean, obviously it is becoming a little less and less as years go on here, but
Oh, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I could tell you I Love Lucy, which is an old show too, is so culturally relevant. It has
yeah,
a Pop Funko, okay? When
I,
someone has a Pop Funko that Target put out, it's here forever.
yeah, absolutely. And same thing with Genie. Like, it's one of those, it was such a well done show, and people just love it so much that, again, I mean, it came out years before either of us were born, and yet I watched it growing up. Like, I know, and, I know if I had kids, I would watch it with my kids. So it's one of those things, like, it's just so beloved that I don't think it'll ever go away. And so, yeah, there are plenty of people that don't get it. But actually, I would say the amount of people that get I am Genie and not Starfire are much more than the people that get I'm Starfire and not Genie. If that makes sense.
But fair enough. Fair enough. That I could actually see that. I can absolutely see that because it's again weird what people just recognize. And obviously, I Love Genie is like I Love Lucy, or
Yeah.
I Dream of Genie is much like I Love Lucy, where everybody knows quotes from I Dream of Genie.
Yeah.
Everybody knows quotes from it. Whether you realize what it's from or not is
It's
not the important part at that point. And it also instantly clicks because it's very iconic
yeah.
in the realm. So obviously, I could see that. And maybe people just don't like the Teen Titans.
I think it's just with the way my costume is done, it's easier to see the Genie part of it. And also too, when you take into account that, I Dream of Genie was originally in black and white, um, people didn't get to see the color of her costume until, much later on. So a lot of people don't remember necessarily that her colors were pink and red and not the purple and silver that my costume is. So, like, the color doesn't necessarily click for people, but the orange skin makes people go, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, I could see that. And then obviously, I want to quickly jump into anime. I want to do it really quick. So obviously, Yoko from Gurren Lagann. You've done a bunch of Dragon Ball Z. Obviously, you've done Nell from Bleach, and I don't know if you know this, but I had Colleen O'Shaughnessy on, who plays Nell,
Oh,
and so she's great. She plays both versions of Nell, by the way, and I think somebody else who's been on this show borrowed a bunch of your cosplays at one point.
yeah. So
And
most of my cosplays, I work for and with a company called Superheroes Unlimited. We make custom costumes. So, if you've ever looked and seen my posts on Instagram, pretty much all of them are costumes by Superheroes Unlimited. because I am Superheroes Unlimited and so are so many others. So you'll see this exact, like, I've had other people like send me pictures and be like, hey, this looks like your costume, and it's on a different person, and I'm like, yeah, because that is, like, it's the same costume. We have a lot of models that work with us, so we all share costumes, and so pretty much any costume you've seen on me, any of our other girls can wear them as long as they fit. So yeah, you'll definitely see some crossover.
I'm making sure I'm pulling up who it is because it's important. As soon as I find, I'll let everybody know. But obviously, we're going to talk about Superheroes Unlimited. But even doing the anime stuff,
Yeah.
because I like your Yoko. I love her. I love Nell. Obviously, Dragon Ball Z is just classic. I know that was worn at Kamehacon, which is the perfect place to wear it. And so, what is that like to do the anime stuff? Because anime cosplays, Boo, Piccolo Trunks, because that stuff is super, fun, and people just know DBZ right off the bat. And
So, like I said, Dragon Ball Z was actually one of like my first like big obsessions. When I was like 13, it was my everything. Like I like ate, slept, and drank Dragon Ball Z. Okay, I'll tell you. You want to know how much of a nerd I am? My husband loves this story because it's really nerdy. I would paint golf balls up as Dragon Balls, and me and my friends would go out to the woods and we would chuck them as far as we could throw them in like every direction, and then we would go hunt them. And a lot of times we didn't find them all, which was really disappointing, but we actually came up pretty well most times. But that was like one of our favorite things to do, was to go out and hunt Dragon Balls. Because yes, I am that kind of nerd. And so like I love Dragon Ball Z. Like that will always have a special place in my heart. It was my first anime. It was my first obsession. Like, and so yeah, I've done a lot of different Dragon Ball Z characters. There's a few more in there too. I've done Bulma and Launch, and I just recently did Videl. I've done 18. Yeah, I've my list of Dragon Ball. Actually, I'm trying really hard not to keep doing more Dragon Ball Z characters because I'm like, I need to hit some other animes too. Because I keep looking and I'll like find somebody new and I'm like, ooh, I should do this person. I'm like, no. We got to focus on some others first. I will say like My Hero Academia is like my newest obsession. So got some new My Hero costumes coming out soon. So keep your eyes open for that. I just recently came out with like some Seven Deadly Sins, some new stuff from Fairy Tale. I'm like, why did my mind go blank? So, some new stuff on the way. So, not just the old classics.
and the person I'm thinking about, I'm sure we're going to talk about her, is Ali Z.
Oh, okay, yeah, yes.
I love Ali Z. I love her, and she's beyond underrated. Beyond underrated. So obviously, because she's in, I think, around New York City. So that's back in the day. Let's get in the vault. It's in the vault.
I know. I like, now that we live out in Phoenix, I don't get to see her as much anymore. But I love her. She is such a. You're right. Like, so underrated. Like, she is so talented and so beautiful, and her things are amazing. So, but yes, that is the same Nell costume on us both. That's one of the great things about that Nell costume. It fits so many like different body types because she is so tall and beautiful, which I am not. I mean, tall at least. I am a shorty. I'm at 5'4", and I think she's 6 foot. She's tall, like. So.
Taller than me. It's scary.
Yeah.
And so obviously, and the last one I want to talk about is Lady Death, and that's Brian Pulido. Obviously, Brian Pulido, for those who don't know, has been doing Lady Death forever. Lady Death came before the Big Bang. Then the Big Bang happened. Lady Death survived the Big Bang. Then Earth was formed, and Lady Death was formed all before all this. So obviously, no. In all seriousness, Brian Pulido's been doing Lady Death forever. And there's been so many incarnations of it. There's been so many, I guess things that have been done with it. There's been so many special edition books and everything in between. And obviously, you did Lady Death, and there's so many people who've worked on Lady Death that I've interviewed as well. Still working on getting Brian on this. I just didn't ask yet.
Yeah.
Been a little bit swamped with everybody else. But how did that come back? Because you were on a comic cover, and I don't know if you were on a comic cover for a Kickstarter or for something else that was involved in. Because I know that he kills it on Kickstarter. He does like 250 to 300,000
every time.
like I think he either does it twice a year or every quarter.
He does Lady Death twice a year, and then he does Hell Witch once and La Muerto once. So
I know the Lady Death kills it every year. I don't know about the other two because I'm not as familiar with those projects, but I am way more familiar with Lady Death. So.
I mean, and she's been around. She's the OG when it comes to the coffin verse. But honestly, I started cosplaying Lady Death years ago. My husband was actually a fan first. Like, he's loved Lady Death like since the 90s. And so he turned me on to Lady Death. And again, I just thought she was this like just this kick-ass, like I loved her character because I saw so much of myself in Hope in like her human version. I mean, at least, you know, who I was when I started reading, like this kind of, you know, naive, sweet, innocent, you know, girl that just, you know, thinks the whole world is going to be perfect, and it's not. And that's the thing I find so attractive about Lady Death is Lady Death is the result of all of this hardship and toil that just makes her into this strong character, but who is ultimately very vulnerable when she lets herself, you know, when she lets you into that you know, part of her. And so she was just such this like attractive character. And then, I mean, she's the, you know, the pinnacle of beauty. And so, and then on top of all of that, there are all these comic versions and variations. And my God, this girl has to have you know, closets that's, you know, 2 castles wide because there's so many different versions. And so that's the thing that's fun about her is there's so many variations to just her classic style that are all so uniquely her. And so that was the thing, like, again, I was specifically looking for this, like the one that jumped out at me. And it was a New York Comic-Con exclusive for Dragon Wars like years ago. And I just saw this look and I was like, oh my God, that's the one right there. And I like started literally that week, started making this thing. And so, you know, and the rest is history. But
and then how did you get involved to be on that cover? Because obviously you're a fan first, and then obviously it led somewhere, and then, you know, how did that all come out? Because I don't know the exact cover you were on, and was it a Kickstarter or was it just him releasing something?
It was a Phoenix Fan Fusion exclusive. So it was like our Phoenix Comic-Con here. And actually, so it was kind of a slow build, so to speak.
It's that the cover you're on is called a con exclusive.
Yes.
For those who are in the business and industry, which is my sector, what I'm doing as a comic book, that means that you can only get the book at a con and maybe if you were up on their web store afterwards.
Yeah, so it was only available that weekend. It was 2019. And my book sold out, so yeah, good times. But no, it was one of those, I became friends with Brian and the whole Coffin crew, actually. It started, we first met at a con, actually out in New Jersey. And then it turns out he and his wife live here in Phoenix. And so we ended up, like, I've done quite a few of their Kickstarters. I've gone pretty much anything they need help with. I'm like, dude, do you need a Lady Death there? I will be your Lady Death. Like, I volunteer as tribute. And so, like, anytime they need me, they know they can call. Like, if they need a Lady Death there, they know I will be there. They had their own con just for Coffin Comics. And I was Lady Death there. I came out and, you know, represented for them. So like, you know, I've done a lot with them. Me and the Coffin crew, we go way back. We're like homies now, you know. But I love everybody on their team, and I love Brian and I love his wife Francesca. Like they're all just amazing people, and I love working with them. And so that was kind of what led to it, was just our close ties. And, you know, Brian, I think he's always kind of respected the work and the effort I took, you know, and put into my Lady Death. Like I didn't just, you know, he, like every time I come out to, you know, any of their events, I'm always, you know, fully painted. I have the whiteout contacts in, like I'm always head to toe. Like everything is done to the best of my ability every single time. And so I think he respects that part of it. And so, you know, he knows that I have such a love and such a passion for Lady Death. So that all kind of tied to us coming to this, us putting together this comic book. So it was an exciting time for me, for sure.
And obviously, you know, companies like Dynamite, and I know Zenescope has done a little bit of it, but they've sort of backed out of that. Marvel had their entire run with those cosplays covers, and then they were sort of backed out of that too at this point. I don't know if DC's ever done anything like that, but I know Dynamite is big on that. You know,
Actually, I
yeah.
don't know if they've done any cosplay variants.
Who?
DC.
Yeah, I don't think they've done any cosplay variants the same way Marvel has done
Yeah.
it. The same. I mean, Dynamite is the
They make
leading
a lot of them.
company that does that with Red Sonja, and you know, I guess they don't do anything with Betty Page because they have already pictures of Betty Page, but they do stuff with Vampirella and a few others. I can't think of anybody else.
I have my own variant cover with Dynamite as Red Sonja.
And so obviously that's a big deal in its own right, and a lot of cosplayers have gone through them and done a bunch of stuff and have been called back. And so there's been a few. So what is that like for you to be on Coffin Comics and working with them on a few covers, and then also Dynamite, because Dynamite definitely deals with a different audience, and their audience loves cosplay covers.
Oh, sure. I mean, honestly, to me, as a cosplayer, it is the biggest compliment I can receive. To say that the creators, the people that make these books, think that my cosplays are worthy enough to put it on the cover. Like, that is, I mean, like I said, I can't get a bigger compliment. And as far as Coffin Comics goes, I was the first. I was the first cosplay on a cover of Coffin Comics. So that, I mean, I can't even put into words like how much of an honor that was to me, and how, I mean, just like, I mean, that is everything. Like there's no bigger prize. There is, you know, like that is just insane to me. Like to be, you know, to walk into a comic book store and see my face there, like, that's crazy.
And even the fact that people who don't know who you are, because at this stage, you know, you're big on Instagram and obviously Facebook as well, but Coffin Comics has a huge reach, so does Dynamite. What is that like to now be all over? And obviously even more so with Dynamite, because Dynamite goes through Diamond. I don't know if Coffin Comics goes through Diamond. Again, I am not as familiar with Coffin Comics, so I'm a little bit ignorant on that, but I know when you're doing 300,000 on a Kickstarter and then you're involved in that, I mean, you're reaching a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the people you also reach in Coffin Comics are diehard fans, and they're what you're called true believers. I, as a fan, I go through on my previews and I'll pick up just a random Dynamite cosplay cover because I think it's going to look cool on Instagram. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not a true believer in Dynamite. I'm not. I'm the first person to say it because I'm a cover guy. I'm also a comic book investor, and every once in a while, I do very well on a $4 book, and it does very well for me. And depending on who it is and what's going on and a variety of stuff. You know, there's a whole metric that's a different discussion, and you could buy it in September. You could buy it in September in my class. I'm just saying. So, and you can learn all the secrets then and there. But getting back to you, that's the paid advertising for this entire show right there. But what is that like for that reach to expand? Because obviously it's very beneficial from a business perspective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's anything you can do that expands your reach and brings your face to a new audience. I mean, it's great. I mean, it can create a new fan. It can create a new, yeah. Like those are the things that help me grow, and that can be the thing that people will come to me in later months and go, hey, I saw you for the first time on this comic, and like I fell in love with all your other cosplays. It's so great to finally meet you at this con. There's so many ways that it does. It helps bring me to a new audience. And so to put my face in front of that many people, or even just my name, I mean, it's great that people come later, and even if they don't necessarily follow me on Instagram, that they can come and go, oh my God, Sapphire Nova. Like I've heard that name before. Like that's crazy. I mean, that's what it's all about. And like you said with Coffin, like the fans are diehard. Like the fans of Lady Death are, I mean, as fanatic as you can get. Like it's amazing and so cool. And so to have all of them get behind me and go, you know what, I loved this cover. I thought this was beautiful. I love your Lady Death cosplay. It's amazing. Just to have all these people on my side, it's just, I mean, it's absolutely great. And it's, it's what I live for as a cosplayer, just for people to say, that's my favorite character. I think she's the most beautiful thing in the world. And you do her justice. Like, the fact that people think I do Lady Death justice, like, wow, like that's like crazy to me. Like, I mean, she's like the pinnacle of beauty.
And then I'm going to ask you a controversial question, because obviously you are a Lady Death fan. Yes. I am okay with Lady Death in which that I enjoy what I read of it, but I'm not a diehard fan of it. And then I find it to be super interesting. I've seen the old stuff, I've seen the new stuff, and how do you feel about it? Because there's some amazing covers done by some amazing people, but then there's the old stuff too. And where do you line up on that? And I know I'm about to ruin your entire business relationship.
Not at all. No, I mean the old stuff. I mean the old stuff is the foundation, the building blocks. I mean it is what made everything what it is. Like, I mean, you can't go wrong with the old stuff. Like, it's great. But the new stuff, there's so many intricacies and just, again, like she's just such a powerful entity. And I love that in some of the newer comics, you get to see more of her like vulnerable side, but then you get to see that, like, again, back to that bloodlust. And I mean, now even back to like kind of her evil side, like, so, you get to see so much of her range that, and then.
And also the art. Just for those who don't know, obviously I'm a big Sun Kumanaki fan. I loved Almatig or Matei. And obviously both of them have been on my show. And obviously, just what you can do with art now. When she has a glowing sword, that couldn't happen 15 years ago. And that changes the game in a lot of ways. And so obviously, it's not that controversial, but I'm just curious how you even feel, because like what you can do now with art is phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if Josh Burns has stepped into the Lady Death, and I'm sure at some point he will, but he's going to eventually come into that, and he's going to do something amazing if he already hasn't. And, obviously when those three individuals, I mean, obviously I'm a Zenoscope guy, and a lot of people go through Zenoscope, work for Lady Death, and vice versa. And it's super just interesting what can be done with it. And while the old stuff is the basic blocks, I feel like the new stuff's art is phenomenal. And it's leaps and bounds beyond.
Yeah. When you're talking artwork, especially, like, again, the old stuff, it is what made everything. But the new stuff is just unparalleled. I mean, every single cover is a work of art, and I mean it's worthy of framing and putting on your wall. And
Especially the virgins. The virgins are nice.
I'm looking at every single piece of art, going, "Ooh, can this make a new costume?"
And so obviously that's what I want to table as far as the cosplay is about you, but I do want to talk about Superheroes Unlimited, because obviously this is a commission, costume, pattern, idea shop. Obviously you've done a lot of stuff with that, and people like me are not capable of building cosplays, and if we want to cosplay, you might be the cheapest option, both my time, effort, and me not cutting off my hand. So I'm sure my surgeon is disappointed. So but what is, beyond the jokes aside, what is Superhero Unlimited beyond what I sort of described? And you could correct any part of it. And if you'd like to apologize to my surgeon, we could call him right now.
No, I mean, Superheroes Unlimited at its base, we're a custom costume business. So anything you send us a picture of, we can make. You can't get any, more vague than that, but that perfectly describes what we do. Truly, I mean, we're there for, the obscure stuff, or, hey, I love this costume, but I don't like this part of it. Can you take that off? Yes. We can make the mashups. We can make that obscure costume that was only seen on one page of one comic book, 50 years.
And even to go further. So, for instance, let's say that I have a cosplay, but I need a prop build. And I'm just not good at props, because let's be realistic, prop building is an art in of itself. And there are cosplayers who are beyond gifted, and I'm sure people in the industry, and I do as well, and they're like, I don't build my props because it's a nightmare. And I'm sure that you could just build somebody a prop, yep, and do it the way they want it to be done, because, and I'm sure you get commissions like that and requests like that saying, hey, I'll give my favorite character in Resident Evil, Hunk from Resident Evil. He carries a particular gun. That gun as a replica is very, very difficult to build. And yep, I wouldn't know how to build it. And I personally just want to have a replica of it. Not even for cosplay. It's it's a P9. The thing looks phenomenal. And it's the triple tap weapon, which is awesome. Mercenaries. And then Human Unit never killed. But obviously that's something that you guys can build.
Yes. Yeah, like you said, we can do pieces of costumes if that's what you're looking for. Like, again, everything we do is custom, so can we do it? Yes. Truly, it comes down to, we are all custom made, so no, we are not cheap. No, we are not China prices. But are we cheaper than you trying to make it yourself and cutting off your hand and that trip to the surgeon? Yes, absolutely.
Or even just knowledge, because I make the argument, and we were speaking before about how, I'm building out a business, and that I'm going to hire somebody in a particular sector of my business, because it's not that I can go and not learn it. It's that I'm going to just commission out what I'm not good at, because it's going to be cheaper than me learning it. And that person is going to know what they're doing, and I don't have to worry about that problem anymore. And so, I mean, I've said it before where it's like, commission out what you don't want. I mean, my logo is up above. Mm-hmm. I'm really bad. It's this way, guys. It's this way and upward.
All right.
But I didn't design my logo. I commissioned somebody out to do that, because I'm not a graphic designer. And that's how I view you guys, is that I am not a prop builder. I'm not a cosplay builder. I might be able to wear the cosplay. I want to look good in it. It might look good on me, but I don't know where to start. And that's how I view it. It's cheaper in the long run, especially for somebody like me who doesn't have the time or doesn't have the workshop space.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and you said it, the tools, the multiple times it takes, because you don't get it right on your first try. So, the materials wasted on those, testers, the time wasted on the testers. And then in the end, is it still going to come out right? Who knows? You know, that is what we're here for. So we are there to help out in, again, whatever fashion people need help with.
And then also, I've said this before, you know, and this is part of what I'm doing here as well, where the three things that I think are going to determine the future are big libraries of content. We're seeing that Disney Plus, you know, Time Warner, you know, Netflix, Amazon is now in the game. We're seeing customization, and we're also seeing on demand. And well, obviously, you guys are in that customization market, and so you are completely customizable, meaning that that's what people are wanting. You know, people now, I feel, especially before COVID, it was going there, and I think we're going to get there in about 5 years, and I think we're here now. And so what is that like to be really where people are wanting to be? Because you're not, I mean, you're a little bit on demand, but your entire business is a customization thing. I want this X.
On demand. I mean, it's great because, again, it's something that will always have a market. You know, as long as there is cosplay, there will always be need for us, because there are going to be people that want to wear cosplay and don't want to make it. And so, and then more so, you know, again, you can go to China and buy a Spider-Man Zentai suit for, you know, however much, $50, whatever it is, you know, that is cheaper than us, of course. But there's so much out there that they can't, you know, China doesn't have everything. And so we do have such a great market because there's so many versions and so many variations and so many, you know, different looks, or, you know, again, I love this costume, but I don't really like that shade of pink that they use. I would rather it be more of a magenta, you know.
Do you also think that there now is a position where people say, hey, look, I want to stand out at a con, where for a while, you know, and I'm sure you've seen it, there's been like 90 Harley Quinns running around, and they're all suicide Harley Quinn. Nothing wrong with that. If you're thrilled and you want to be one of 90 people and you're happy and it's great, and that you bought your cosplay for $120 and you're thrilled about it, nothing wrong with that. But do you also feel that people are saying, wait a second, I want to be like different, which I want to stand out from these other 90 who are in this category and be different? You know, I want to be, somebody say, how'd you do that? What is that? What is this idea? This is the most authentic thing I've seen. You know, I'm that way with comic variants, where I just have a 75 print run that I'm selling on eBay. There's only 75 of them out there. I feel great that I have a 75 print run. That means there's 74 other people who have a book just like me. It's a very small club. I have custom commissions. Nobody in the world has that book, and that picture up on Instagram by the artist has like 15,000 likes. And there are people who say, hey, where can I get that? And the company that they were doing it, it's Firefighter Sexy Samantha Van Helsing. Cenoscope was like showing it off in their booth at AwesomeCon 2 years ago, to me, not knowing it was my commission. And I'm like, yeah, that's my book. And we all had a chuckle. And I haven't told that story online because I don't want to embarrass one of their people in that company, but he'll take it with stride. But the idea is that that's what I really think you're hitting. And I think it's a brilliant business model, whether that was intentional or you foresaw the future, because you've been doing Superheroes Unlimited for what, like 6-7 years now? And I don't think 6-7 years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the customizable market was the clear path. I think in 2020, 2021, it is absolutely the clear path.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, it was our path from the beginning, but, you know, like everything, we've readjusted, and we started out with something that was, an idea this wide, and we've, narrowed down our focus and, figuring it out. But yeah, I mean, that's the reason why we've been able to survive 2020 and 2021, whereas, so many cosplayers I know haven't been able to make it through this time.
Oh, so many cosplay builders haven't been able to make it because you're just not a cosplayer. You're a cosplay builder as well.
Yep.
And so there is a differentiating and this is one of the things that I like about you is that you're an active cosplay, you know, and you're also an active cosplay builder. And I think that adds a lot of authenticity to what you're doing as well. I think it's very important because there are people who do not cosplay and they build cosplays. And for me, if I'm buying a cosplay from somebody who's building me a custom, I want to know they also cosplay.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that, does make it so great is everybody that we work with, because we have multiple builders in our team too. I build most of my own stuff, but we have a whole team that works with us for building for our customers. And most of them are cosplayers because you understand something so fundamentally different than somebody that just makes it.
Like sitting down to eat your lunch.
To wear this all day,
Like sitting down to eat your lunch.
Yeah.
I don't even joke when I say that. It's the funniest thing, and this is like 5 years ago. You obviously, I don't know if you remember, but I remember like eating my lunch on my cosplay. I'm happy at a con with my little sandwich that was overpriced, all thrown out, and then I see like 10 cosplayers just standing. There's open seats, and I'm like, it didn't dawn on me until just recently. But I digress right there.
Yeah. It's true. Like they're how does you get, I mean, there's so many things that happen on the page of a comic book or in a TV show or whatever that they don't actually have to deal with movement. So how does that stay attached to your body? How do you sit down and eat lunch? How do you can you stand in those heels all day?
I stand in my heels all the time.
I mean, I do.
I can barely stand at a con, and I get exhausted walking at a con, and I'm not in a cosplay.
Yeah.
And I don't know how big, Fusion, Phoenix Con is, but Awesome Con is huge.
Mm-hmm.
New York Comic Con can be huge. It could also be very, very small, depending on how you set yourself up. I did Anime NYC.
Find a spot, and you pretty much stay there. But
Anime NYC was legitimately very small for me, despite it being a large con. But I purposely set it up that way because I have a hard time walking. And I was smart. I set it up in a smart way because I know the Javits Center very well.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, but if you're wearing, 6-inch heels, that could be a bitch of a day. It could be a bitch of a day. Or if you're wearing heavy boots, if you're a guy, it could be a bitch of a day. If you're wearing boots that are an extra 3 pounds, it adds up quickly 8 hours later.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And, part of that, even wearing a wig all day or, wearing wings that, get heavy on your back or, armor or any of it. I mean, it can all get taxing by the end of the day. And so truly that is one of the things that makes cosplay a challenge. And you just have to kind of go in with the mindset that, my body will not like me tomorrow, but I love me today.
And I think it's important though that, people who are building your cosplays understand that. I'm not knocking any builder who's just a builder. I get it. It's perfectly fine if you're just a builder. And if you're doing it as a hobby or it's your job, that's fine. And you cosplay 1 or 2 times a year, that's fine. I don't mind that per se, and I'm not one to judge, but also understanding what it's like to be in a costume and a cosplay for 8 hours and it being taxing, like your Starfire is not taxing on your body. I would imagine it's a very light cosplay, but then there's something else where, I can't think of a cosplay that might be taxing on your body off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are a few that are exhausting to wear.
They all are in different ways. Like even Starfire, like she's pretty light, yes, you're right. But she's got those 6-inch heels. So believe me, my feet do not like me at the end of the day. And the body paint in and of itself is taxing just because, things like most people, you sit down for lunch and, you got that chance to slump and take it easy. And, you can't do that in body paint. You'll get lines, you'll get creases, it'll wear your paint in weird spots. Like, So there's all kinds of things that, you know, some things don't seem like they're taxing, but they really are at the end of the day.
Yeah, and again, I go back to the point where I think the fact that you are a cosplayer and you are a builder and that you do custom builds for people just adds such an element because you understand what's going to work and what's not, especially if you do a bunch of cons a year. You know, I'm an active comic book investor. When I'm teaching my class, I'm not teaching my class from somebody who has never done this before.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a very active podcaster. I have a podcast class that is out there that's sort of not out there, but I'm teaching it from a perspective of somebody who does a lot of interviews. I mean, this year alone, I'm doing 150 interviews. So when I know how, when I'm telling somebody how to interview somebody, you know, and how to book a guest, my merit is different than somebody else's who's only three. It's much like wrestlers. You know, if somebody's only wrestled one match versus somebody who's wrestled 300 matches in a year, you know, it's the same thing. So obviously, you know, I think that you come from a very knowledgeable position when you build. And I think it's super important. That's something that I want to highlight for anybody out there who wants to buy a custom build or buy a custom piece off of you guys for whatever they're doing, whether it's a mask or anything like that. You're coming from the perspective saying, I get it. It has to be worn at a con.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That you know, that is something that I do think sets us apart and, you know, makes us stand out.
And then so I just wanted to highlight that. And then this kind of brings me into what I want to talk about because I'm super lazy, and that's CouchCon.
Sure.
Briefly, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, CouchCon was, I mean, ultimately something we were, you know, trying to do to, you know, give people something to do at home during all this fun COVID times, because so many people were missing out on that community and conventions. So we were, you know, just a fun way to kind of bring the con experience home. Unfortunately, my husband and I, we both got COVID slightly after starting CouchCon, which kind of killed all the momentum and, you know, why we didn't continue on any further ones. But maybe something we'll bring back in the future.
And then even going further, obviously, 2020 is a watch for most people. I mean, I went into the live game. I did 90 interviews in 2020. Obviously, I turned a bad situation into a very advantageous situation. I'm continuing to do it right now because I don't think we're out of the woods. But and I don't know when I'm going back to a con per se. Obviously, I moved from Washington, D.C., and BlurredCon's coming out in 2 weeks. If I was in D.C., I'd probably go to BlurredCon, but I don't live there anymore. I think there's a con in Hartford in September that I may or may not go to. But where do you think cons are going? Because obviously, you know, and my perspective, and I threw it out earlier tonight, and I throw it out again, is that economically, it's going to be very tough. And we're already seeing that in the comic community where people have their list of books and they're just getting what's on their list and they're not making any additional expenditures. Or if they're making an additional expenditure, it's like $20 to $30. It's not $200. And people are being very selective now. That could just be at a con that my friend went to, and that he said he had a fantastic first day, but then days 2 and 3 were very slumpish.
Sure.
And so I don't know where you find all of this going from a safety perspective, a cosplay perspective, and even just people feeling comfortable and wanting to go, and what the economic side of all this looks like, because and it's okay if you don't know, because I don't even know half what's about to happen, and I think we're all going to find out in the next 6 months.
Sure. I mean, that's the thing is it's impossible to know, because obviously things are going to change and things are going to get rewritten, and things that you think are going to happen are not going to happen. Things that you think aren't going to happen will happen. So, I mean, it's going to be a toss up. I mean, I think things will go back to the way they were. You know, some cons will go away forever. Some new cons will pop up. Things are starting.
Do you think that there's going to be smaller cons that are popping up? Because that's something that I've been hearing, where instead of big ones, such as, you know, there might be a move away from something like, San Diego, and there might be not like getting rid of San Diego, but people might say, hey, I want to go to a con that caters to 10,000 people and not 100,000 people or 5,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, things like San Diego will come back. People will always want to go to the bigger shows, so they will happen. There will be people that want to go to the smaller shows. The bigger shows probably aren't going to happen this year, just because they're too big. But the little shows are already.
Hey! Thanksgiving, it's going to be great. Out in Cali, Thanksgiving weekend, San Diego Comic Con. You going?
We'll see if it happens. Sure.
No. Tickets, I think are on sale. It's going to be great. It's going to be the best thing ever. It's like, God help us. Like, they should have took the mulligan and just said, we'll do it next year better.
Yeah. So we'll see. Like I said, things are going to keep changing, but we're already booked for a couple shows come August and September. So, things are starting to pop back up and starting to happen again. So we're limping back towards it. They're going to be light, not as many people will go, but then there's more people that are, so bored sitting around the house that they might not have gone to that show before, but they'll go now. So it's going to be a toss up. Everybody's going to be on different sides of the fence, and that's okay. Makes you feel comfortable and makes you feel good.
I think what's going to happen is I think it's going to be very much a 6 month of trial and error, and it's going to be 6 months of rocky roads, because every show is going to be different, and every show is going to be an experiment. Because you could go to one show and it goes great, and you have a fantastic turnout, and then the show 3 weeks later, people just are not in it, and also what's going to happen in from my understanding in June, July, and August, in particular July and August, is there's going to like on weekends, there's gonna be like 10 shows that are competing against each other in 10 different areas, and it's gonna be fantastic because competition, in my opinion, breeds better results. And so now I'm very excited to see how that turns out, because I love competition and I love capitalism, and I love when shows have to say, okay, how do we bring the most value to our customer? How do we get me, Andrew, to go to this show and not this show? And I'm in the middle, and it's a 25-mile drive to both of them. How do you get me to go to one show over the other? And I can't wait for it, because it's going to bring more value to me. And saying is that you have to be the cheapest, the most expensive, or the most valuable. And I think value is where we're going, and I love it. So on that note, I do want to give you an opportunity to self-promote yourself, because we just covered a lot of stuff. So where can people find you? Obviously, your website, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. Do you have a TikTok? Because all the cool kids are on TikTok.
Yeah, I've got them all. And the thing that is great is I make it nice and easy. I am Sapphire Nova Cosplay on everything. So yeah, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Insta. You can find me on TikTok. You can technically find me on Twitter, but I don't really ever go on Twitter. But yeah, Sapphire Nova Cosplay, nice and easy. It's always the same. Heck, you can find me on OnlyFans now. But yeah, always Sapphire Nova Cosplay. So, and then our website is superheroesunlimited.com. That's where you can find like the old couch cons. You can find videos and all that fun stuff is still up there. All of my prints are for sale on superheroesunlimited.com. You can also find, if you want to book any of the custom costumes, anything like that, if you want any price quotes, Superheroes Unlimited on everything too. Superheroes Unlimited on Facebook, Insta, TikTok, on all of them. Just Superheroes Unlimited, and you can always message us there.
And on that note, and I've been saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it, 77 up, 77 down, you have to support indie. What that means is that, and you just outline a bunch of ways people can economically support either, you through Superheroes Unlimited, and you're getting, you're going to be getting a custom cosplay, obviously, if you go through that way. Obviously, prints, super important. And obviously, if you like what people do and they have a product, you need to support what they're doing by buying their product. That's typically how it goes, and it's called capitalism. And so it's this new concept. I don't know if it's going to catch on, but in all seriousness,
That's why I started my OnlyFans. It's actually, a way for me to promote, not like, don't worry, I'm not doing nudes. Sorry, guys. But, it is a little bit sexier side, but also some of my brand new stuff you'll get to see there. You'll get to see first run, exclusive prints. But really, I started it as a way that you can help support my costumes, honestly, because all the money that I'm going to be making there goes right back into making new costumes. So if you want to see new stuff come out from me, that's a great way to support. Or again, always print sales. It really does help, and it helps me be able to create new content and keep new fun stuff coming at you.
I have a buy me a coffee, and that's what this goes for is legitimately running StreamYard. StreamYard is $25 a month.
Yeah.
It's and I'm happy to do it. I appreciate everybody. If somebody throws me legitimately $1, it helps to reduce my cost significantly, and there's no fee that is given to me that is too small, or donation, or whatever you want to call it. But again, as I've been saying, obviously you have to support indie economically, and there's a million ways to do it. But I've also been saying that, look, COVID has wrecked people's lives. I know this. I moved out of my apartment from Washington, D.C. back to my parents' house, partially due to COVID. So obviously I am the first person to say, hey, I get it if you're in an economic hard time. And if that's the case, please make sure that you take care of yourself, take care of your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, husband, wife. If you have children, make sure your kids are okay. Take care of your mortgage, your rent, make sure that's fine. Electricity, water, food, shelter, internet, make sure that's okay. If you have pets, make sure they're okay. All that stuff is super important, both, economically, on a mental health level, and on a variety of other levels as well. And those are the people and things you should be taking care of first before you go support me or anybody else. And if you are in a situation where that is happening, what you should be doing first and foremost, if you can't support economically, you should be supporting socially. And what that means is following on Facebook pages, liking on Instagram, heart emoji. It's not good enough just to follow. Like a post on Facebook, subscribe to somebody's YouTube channel. Definitely, comment on something. Shoot somebody a DM. Say, hey, I really enjoyed your cosplay. Obviously share their things around. That matters. If you're their TikTok, follow them on TikTok. Even if you don't do anything, you're really lazy, just following somebody on Instagram is super helpful. It makes a difference, and you might not think it makes a difference, and then sharing things at the same time. So that stuff is massively important to do. And if you are supporting economically, you should be doing it anyway. But obviously if you're not, and you can, and you're in that tough situation, you have to support social. And that's all I'm going to say. And that's been the message for the last 77 interviews, and it will continue to be that way. Please support economically if you can. If you can't, follow Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. And it goes a long way. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, no, I think that is a great message, and truly any and all support is greatly appreciated. And, I truly value each and every person that reaches out to me, or that, gives a like, or any of that stuff. Like it truly is an honor, and truly my pleasure to be able to bring your favorite characters to life. So I truly 100% from the bottom of my heart appreciate all the people that have supported me over the years and that continue to support. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, and I hope to bring you more great things in the future.
Well, I have nothing else to add, so we're going to wrap it up right there.
Okay. See you guys.